Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of Year 5 of the Bracket Report, brought to you by Delphi Bracketology. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. Joining me today are our senior editors, Caleb Hosier and Walter Gleason. We're in the middle of another college basketball season, and we want to make sure that you're as informed as possible about who will be in March Madness come Selection Sunday. You can follow our work at our website, delphibracketology.com, and also follow us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets, where we'll like to answer all of your questions. Caleb and Walter, both of you have had a new experience for Delphi Bracketology, and Purdue University has granted us photography access, and both of you have been at Ross-Ade and at Mackey Arena. Walter, we'll come to you first. What's it like to be able to take pictures that close to the action?
I mean, it's an unreal experience. I've grown up watching these type of sports, and to be able to be on the field, on the court, taking photos, I mean, it's dreamy, I guess, is a good word for it, because it's just something you never imagine, and you're just there. So,
Caleb, when I'm on Media Row, whether in the press box or I'm at Mackey at Media Row, and I can spot one of our students down there on the floor just feet away from all of the action, it is quite exciting for this old guy, but it's got to be a thrill for you to be that close.
Yeah, it's nice being there when Purdue's playing the number 2 team in the country, Bama, and having the student section right behind me and seeing them right in front of me and just hearing the crowd surround me and be right there by the players.
So you can find both Caleb and Walter's work on our webpage, Delphi Bracketology. There's a section for game day photos. We encourage you to go look at that. They put together some nice photo galleries of the games just recent, the Nebraska game. They've also been at a couple games recently, and they'll work together. Caleb does a nice job putting some of their many photos. Fellas, Walter, how many do you take during a basketball game?
Last game that I was at, I took around 4,200 photos.
That's unbelievable. You're at that many too, right, Caleb?
Yeah, I took about 4,000 my last one.
So there are not 4,000 on the website. They do a good job of breaking them down and getting the best pictures. They work with their photography teacher. It's another thing about our group, besides trying to tell you who the 1 seeds are and the 2 seeds, we do have a lot of great experiences, which this show is also one of them, where our young people can do some real-world activities. So, Walter and Caleb, we appreciate that. We look forward to sharing that more. But let's talk brackets. That's what we're here for. We're going to start by looking at our top seed line, which everyone's interested in. Our 1 seeds, Auburn, Duke, Alabama, Iowa State. Walter, I woke up to see a half-court shot go in by Arizona defeating Iowa State, and I thought, oh, my gosh, the script's already made. But we kind of on the way decided to keep Iowa State at the 1 seed line. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I think I agree, because half-court shot, I mean, you can't really look at their entire resume and say it was a 1 in 300% chance that he was going to make that shot. You can't just defeat their entire resume just based off that one shot. I think they stay up there. Should be fine.
Caleb, why would we move Tennessee if there was any chance of moving up? Is there any reason why Tennessee might be considered better than Iowa State?
Maybe with their strength of schedule just being a little bit better than Iowa State and having their net just a little bit better.
I think maybe quality of wins gives Tennessee a little bit of boost too. So you really have Iowa State and Tennessee fighting for that last spot. Your Duke Blue Devils, talking about photographers being close to the action, the young man kind of got sick on the baseline. But Duke has pulled out a couple of close wins and have a big game. Pretty confident about Duke on the 1 seed line?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
So that brings us to our 2 seed line. It's Tennessee, then Florida, Marquette, who is in Indianapolis this evening to play Butler. I will be at that game. And then Purdue, as we're taping on Tuesday. Purdue moves up. They had an up-and-down week. They lost to Ohio State. Caleb, you're a big fan of Purdue. You had to be a little concerned about them maybe being a 3 or 4 seed after the Ohio State loss, and then they just dominate Michigan. Your thoughts on the Boilers at the 2 seed line?
Well, with that Ohio State game, they had a 16-point lead at halftime, I think that's
Correct.
What it was, and there's nothing you can do when Ohio State's chucking up threes when the clock's getting down to 2 seconds and they're 7 feet behind the line making them all, and just that one half just kind of brought that down.
Purdue has had some losses, but they scheduled really tough. So I think they're solid. Some people will have Marquette and Purdue on the 3 seed line. These seeds are very, very tight. But let's go to our 3 seed line. Michigan State, Houston, Kentucky, Kansas. Walter, is there someone on there that is grabbing your attention as far as a team right now that is doing well?
Houston. They're under 500 in quad one, and they had like a bad loss to, I believe it was San Diego State, but it was in overtime, and we just talked about it with Tennessee and Iowa State. You can't really define their entire resume based off of a lucky shot that maybe got them back into it or let them play more. But I think that, they're at a solid spot.
Yeah, I think, and Caleb will talk about Houston coming up a little bit. Michigan State is another team to watch. Our 4 seeds finishing out: Oregon, Texas A&M, Illinois, Mississippi State. They got a lot of winning to do to stay at the 4 seed line. But before we go to our first break, let's talk about teams moving up and down no matter where they're at. Caleb, who's your team moving up? We just talked about it. Continue talking about Houston and why they're moving up.
Got Houston moving up because their net has really improved with the great wins that they've had, where they're playing not so good of teams, they're beating them by really good numbers, and just they've only got those 3 losses, which are all really good losses, and it's average of 16 net for those losses.
You got North Carolina moving down. Why are they actually moved down and out of our bracket? Why are they struggling right now?
Because they aren't able to pick up any important wins, as they are 1-7 in quad 1, and they also have a quad 2 loss. But having those 7 losses, it's no help to get up there when you're not winning.
For me, a team moving up is Missouri. They're getting some nice wins. They've won 5 out of their last 6, including at Florida. They've just beat number 23 Ole Miss. They're in the 6 seed line, 7 seed line. Missouri, and really with the SEC, they have a chance to really stay there or move up because the SEC is simply loaded. And the team moving down for me is Pittsburgh. And here's what's interesting about Pittsburgh. They're not really losing a lot of games. It's just they're not having the opportunities in the ACC, and other teams are passing them by. Vanderbilt has a couple nice wins in the last 2 weeks, so they pass up Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh's moving down because they're being compared to teams that are moving up. Walter, who are your teams that are moving up and down?
I got Maryland moving up. I believe they just absolutely beat Maryland. Oh, not Maryland. My apologies. That's my team. Illinois, number 18, by 21 points, and which I think that's a really good win, giving them a little getting the ball rolling coming into these next games. So I think the momentum will carry them. So I think they're valid to move up. I got Georgia moving down because they've lost 4 in a row, and 6 of their next 8 games are against teams that are top 20 or better. So that's a hard schedule, which it could be beneficial for them as well, because if they win 6 of their 8 games, then that could flip the script.
They got to turn things around. They're down to a 10 seed for us. So That's some basic information. Stay with us here on the Bracket Report. After the break, we'll take a look at some teams in the middle of our bracket. That's next here on the Bracket Report.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds, talking Colts, Pacers, Indiana sports, every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Has it, leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County.
Unbelievable!
Touchdown.
Living up to that last day. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report, sponsored by Delphi Bracketology. Caleb Hosier, Walter Gleason, Brian Tonsoni here. We're now talking about some teams that are really tightly seeded on our seed lines. And a seed line is basically 1 through 68, the teams in order, and then we put those into brackets of who they're playing. But we mostly talk about seed list first and then do the bracketing second. Man, the teams 21 through 34 are razor thin as our last meeting. I have a good group of freshmen that meet on Mondays. They were working on it yesterday. The group that's left behind today is working with Steve Painter, our faculty member, on these very teams to see if there's any movement. But, man, these teams have good things on their resume, and they have some questionable things on their resume. So you could be a 6 seed or you could be a 9 seed in this range. So we're going to pick out some teams and share with you kind of our decision-making and what we do. So, Walter, go ahead. Which team of 21 through 34 would you like to discuss first?
I think I'll talk about Michigan first. I mean, their net is 20, which is it's bearable, I think. And they have a quad 2 loss, though, which kind of hurts them, especially when we're going to get down to those split decisions where it's tight. I just think that's something we can look at heavily.
Yeah, we've had Michigan high, and I think they need to be reevaluated. They're winning. They're 15-5, but some other teams are really pushing them. Caleb, what team in this range is interesting to you?
I'd go with Arizona with just how they start off the year. They start off the year maybe 3-4. Just not able to capitalize on those big games and kind of hurt them, and now they're picking that up. Now being in the Big 12 now,
yeah,
and being in that better conference instead of the Pac-12 from last year I feel like it's going to help them rack up those good wins pretty quick and help boost them up. And they got that 11 net and decent strength of schedule now that I feel like that'll help them. I
think they had a really good Eastern road trip. I think they beat Cincinnati and West Virginia, which really got their season turned around from that 3-4 mark that you mentioned, because we had them in the 10-11 seed line when we first started putting something together around Christmas time. And, boy, they've moved up to our 6 or 7 seed line right now. And then last night's win was a huge boost when you can beat a number 1 seed, even though it's at home. That's a quality win that's always going to stay on your resume. For me, I'm going to talk about West Virginia, and these are teams that kind of – they just give us fits because their net is 43, which if you just ranked 1 through 68, a 43 would be a 10 or 11 seed. But they are 4-4 in quad 1, 1-2 in quadrant 2, no bad losses. And they have wins over Iowa State, a 1 seed, Kansas, a 2 or a 3 seed. Arizona, they have split with. They've won on a neutral court, lost at home to Arizona. They've beaten Gonzaga, who is one of these teams in this range. As well as Arizona State, a team that's in and out of our bracket. Man, West Virginia has the quality wins. When you hear bracketologists talk about the quality of their wins, their mathematical formula, the net, and some of the Ken Pom statistics aren't the greatest. So we've kind of moved them up a little bit. They're in the 6 or 7 range. But, man, when you get quality wins, they stick on your resume. Walter, coming back to you, let's look at another team. Who you want to talk about?
Talking about quality of wins, not to dog on the team necessarily, but
we can do that.
Gonzaga, I mean, they don't play anyone. I mean, they have 3-4 really good teams that they can try to win and boost their resume. But when I was looking at their stuff earlier, I was like, who is this team? I've never heard of them. And it's just some of these matchups that we think, man, they have a winning season. They're so good right now. But then you look at it and they're playing who knows no one. It's something we have to take account for, which I think we do a good job of that over the last years because they've never really been known for having a strong.
Yeah, I agree. And the brand name gets in the way. Mm-hmm. Gonzaga's good.
Yeah.
They won that West Coast Conference for years, but their best win is against 28 Baylor early, first game of the year. Yeah. And then they've just really struggled. There's a new stat that is on the team sheet now called wins above bubble. And so what they take is your team that's right on the cut list, maybe in, maybe out, as your average team. And what would an average team do with your schedule? What would that quality team do with your schedule? And then they rank the teams 1 through 360, how many teams are in the NCAA. And it's going to be interesting to see how the committee uses that. But basically, a lot of people think that wins above bubble talk about the quality of your what you do against a bubble team schedule, what's expected of you. Gonzaga's 50th in that metric. Their net is 15. So according to the net, they're a 4 seed. According to wins above bubble and strength of record and some of these other mathematics, they're down, out of the tournament. And that's the outlier the other way. West Virginia with the 43 was an outlier with good wins. Gonzaga doesn't have the good wins, but they're performance-based. When you blow out Baylor by 38 points, your mathematical formulas, your net and KenPom are going to look good. So I think that's a really good find on the dog side, if you would, of dogging on some of these teams and maybe moving Gonzaga down a little bit. Caleb, add another team.
I'd go with Connecticut with just how they've played. They've been dropping losses like crazy, it seems like, after they lost 3 in a row during Thanksgiving. Then after that, they start picking it up, got up there in like top 10 in the rankings, and ever since then they think they lost at home recently, and they've just not been able to capitalize on those games. But they've got a quad 3 loss now and 2 quad 2s, which is stacking up pretty badly for them.
Yeah, they're without Liam McNeely, a 5-star guard, and the committee does take that into some consideration. So if Liam comes back and they go on a 5 or 6 game winning streak, some of those losses, they still count. But they may be able to discount that a little bit. But UConn's fallen to maybe an 8 seed. And, again, back-to-back national champs with the coach who's really good but a hothead. It's hard for us to put them at the 8 seed line. But I do think they are falling a little bit too. But they're right in there. They have good wins. They have quality numbers of wins. For me, let's take a look at UCLA. UCLA won last night at their rival USC to win 4 games in a row after losing 4 games in a row. So an up-and-down team, the UCLA Bruins, again, had to deal with some tragedy in their area with the wildfires, and then they had a trip out east. I think that'll be something that'll be talked about, too, with these mega conferences, the ACC and spanning from the East Coast to the West Coast and the Big Ten, travel and the impact. You wonder what the committee will consider when you go out east and lose to a Rutgers who you shouldn't lose to, but you're traveling quite a bit. I don't know if that's an official metric, but I do think that's something to be considered. So UCLA is a team that I don't think I have seeded very well in our discussions because I had them up, and then when they lose 4 in a row, I think sometimes recency bias is something that we try to avoid, that you don't have to move a team down every time they lose. It's the body of work. And when I looked at UCLA last week before last night's win, they have a win over Arizona, a win over Gonzaga, a win on the road against Oregon, who is a 3 seed, Wisconsin, a 5 seed. They've defeated USC. Their wins above bubble compared to Gonzaga is 29. So they've done a lot better than the average bubble team than Gonzaga has, which wants me to keep UCLA moving up. And I need to be careful, again, with too far of a drop when teams lose, that their wins still count. We got a few minutes left. Walter, I'll send it back to you. We've covered 6 teams of the 14. Is there another team that we haven't mentioned yet that you'd like to share with our listeners something about their resume?
I want to touch on UCLA real quick.
Sure.
I believe they play Oregon, which they're 16 ranked, and their next matchup, I think it's home. And I think that's going to be a big definer on what you're talking about with body of work, because it's going to add another quality win.
They sweep
to their
Oregon.
Resume. Yeah.
That's really going to do wonders. Where do we have? We have them a 6th seed right now, the last 6th seed. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good spot for them. But that matchup, and boy, the matchups now with these mega conferences, almost every week there's 3 or 4 games that are just very, very vital.
The team, though, I want to touch on is Baylor. They have a good net and a decent strength of schedule, which is kind of counts for some of their losses in quad 1. But then you look at their quad 3 loss, and it kind of brings it right back down, because quad 3 losses hurt, especially when we're trying to make decisions on who's going to make the tournament or not.
They don't have good wins. Mm-mm. Their only win is against St. John's, a 7 seed, right, early in the year. They have a win over Arizona State, which is one of our last teams in. But they don't have those quality wins. Their wins above bubble 34, so comparison there. Caleb, who's the last team you want to talk about here in this middle section that gives us fits every year, 6 through 9 seeds?
I want to talk about Ohio State.
Sure.
They're
not on our list here, but you still want to talk about them.
Yeah.
You think they should be on this list?
I think they should be, yes.
All right, so this is exactly what happens at our meetings. Yeah, students stand up against their teacher and then say that I don't have a good list. But we want that because that makes our bracket even better. So we're moving Ohio State into this seed range. Go ahead, fire away.
Good. I want to talk about Ohio State because they went on a 3-game losing streak, and I think all those games were either one possession or they're single-digit losses, and I think majority of those were on the road. And then after that 3-game losing streak, when they're probably confused with what's going on, they go to Mackey Arena and beat a really good team. Then last night they played Iowa at home, and they once again just shot the lights out and destroyed them. So I feel like with where Ohio State's going, where I think they figured out what they're doing, and playing those tough games, I think they've got something going for them right now.
So Ohio State is currently 37 on our seed list, which means after we go back and get lunch and be at the back end of our meeting in school, look for Ohio State to be up to a 9 seed because Caleb wants it done. I think he made a really good argument. And a good point, too, that losses matter, too, how you lose. And sometimes you will look at a record, 8 losses, and that looks bad. But if you had quality losses and competed, that does show up in the net as well. Caleb, that's an excellent point. Let's see real quick who we have left. St. John's is interesting. They are lack. You talk about on dogging someone. They lack some quality wins, I think, in their program. They're winning. Rick Pitino is their coach. People might have them ranked quite highly, but their best win is 55, 2 wins against Xavier, who's a team outside our bracket right now. So I think we personally, looking at this right now, we might have to adjust St. John's a little backwards. So that's a little insight into those teams that really give us a fit, 6, 7, 8 in the part of the 9 seed. And you just saw us make a decision here on the air about Ohio State. But that's what's good about our club. We get difference of opinions, and then we go look at it, and then sometimes that goes down to a vote. But Caleb being senior editor, his vote counts a little bit more than the other, especially the freshmen in our group. But coming up next, we'll discuss the bubble, those last teams in and the teams just on the outside out, and we'll take a look at the games that you need to watch that will affect the bracket here on the Bracket Report.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds talking Colts, Pacers, Indiana sports every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Has it, leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me? Champions of Marion County. Unbelievable.
Touchdown.
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
We're back here on the Bracket Report from Delphi Bracketology. Everyone likes to know who those last 4 teams are in and the first 4 teams out. So let's get right to it. Our last 4, as of right now, always subject to change: San Diego State, Arizona State, UCF, Pittsburgh. Caleb, I'll come to you. Which team there is most likely to make an argument here in the next day or two to drop out?
think I'll go with the Pittsburgh. Just they're 1-6 in quad one, and they're just not able to get those good wins, unlike the other teams having 3 or 2 wins that are really good, and their strength of schedule is not amazing compared to the others, being UCF having a 17 and Arizona State the 6th best strength of schedule in the country. And I feel like looking at that in their quad one games, I feel like they just haven't proven themselves and don't deserve to be in the tournament.
Walter, tell him why he's wrong. Who do you got, or do you agree with him?
I got San Diego State going down because
Really?
Yes, I think they're having 2 losses, one in quad 2 and one in quad 3. I think that's a little more detrimental when it comes to the end of the tournament. Well, into the season, into the tournament. Just because, I mean, you're going to look at that, and that one loss is going to stand out more than when you look at other metrics usually.
San Diego State does have a win over Houston, which is a quality win, which might be a determining factor. When the committee looks at these last 4 teams, they vote them in, and there's always a couple outliers that they like, conference standing. It doesn't seem official metric, but it seems the metrics change. They don't change. It's down to that last team in. You're not ranking teams, 4 in a row or 5 in a row in order. You're now just saying yes or no, and different committee members will think different. San Diego State has fallen, and that's a team too that has traditionally been safe with their play at a 42 net. I'm agreeing with you, Caleb, although I shouldn't after your Ohio State comment. I'm not happy with Pittsburgh's resume, and that shocked me because we had them in the 9 seed range a week or so ago, and I said earlier on Pittsburgh going down, I'm not sure they're doing anything to deserve to be dropped. It's just that other teams are starting to play better. UCF has really good wins. Their net is – we didn't mention them. Their net would be a reason why we're out. The first 4 teams that are out that we could select to move in, Xavier, North Carolina out, Dayton out but moving up, and Wake Forest. Walter, to you, if there's a team that we would argue later today to move in, which team would it be?
I like Wake Forest. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a numbers strongest. I mean, they have the most wins out of any team that we have in the first 4 out. But I just love watching them play. I've watched some of their games, and it's just they can put on a show when they're hitting.
I'm a big Coach fan. Coach Forbes down there does a really good job. All right, Caleb, your turn to tell him why he's wrong.
I don't like any of those teams being in. So I can't find anything to argue with him about that.
So you think we have the right teams out?
I feel like all of them should be out right now.
Xavier would be the only team for me. They have a couple wins. They just recently beat Marquette at Marquette. For me, it would be quality wins here if it's really tight. And that Marquette win, they also have a win against Connecticut, which isn't as quality as it's been in the past. But you go back to that wins above bubble. I think Caleb's probably right again. So games matter. Winning and winning on the road matter. We have a few games for you to watch this week. We'll start with you, Caleb. Give us 3 games to watch this week.
For my first of the 3, I have Indiana and Purdue Friday, just because that is probably a top 2 rivalry in all of college basketball, and that being at Mackey, which is a top 5 place to play at and has been for years now. And with Indiana's struggles and them needing to get a good win sometime now, who knows what can happen with IU. Do they want to show up and prove something or stick to what they've been doing and getting blown out?
Who else you got?
I got Florida and Tennessee, which are 2 teams that were probably one of the last 2 teams without a loss, and people were really looking at them, and now they've been getting to where they have that tougher schedule, and now they're losing games. And I think it's big for these 2 teams to try to prove something really important and try to get up to that 1 seed or try to stay around a 2 seed.
That game's Saturday at noon. And your last game?
Auburn and Ole Miss. With the way Auburn's been playing, I don't know if anyone can beat them, but Ole Miss is a really good SEC school, which most of them are now. And just was it Auburn at Ole Miss, so maybe Ole Miss's crowd can help them get a big win and help boost them.
Ole Miss is on that 4 or 5 seed line. It'd be a huge win for them. Auburn probably does not fall if they lose that. That's Saturday at 2:00. Walter, your 3 games.
I got number 12 Kentucky versus number 8 Tennessee. It's 2 top of dogs in the competition, and it should be a really good game. That's Tuesday today at 7. And I got Xavier and Creighton, which is tomorrow at 8 Wednesday. It's a big chance for Xavier to try to prove that they belong in the tournament, considering they're on the line of not being in the tournament. I think a high-quality win over Creighton will have them in high consideration. My final game is number 16 Oregon versus UCLA. That's Thursday at 10:30. Oregon getting this quality win could potentially even get them to a 3 seed, considering they're a top 4 seed right now.
All right, good games. I'm going to go Wednesday, 7:00, Houston versus West Virginia. We talked about both those teams here, a lot about West Virginia. This is a big opportunity for West Virginia to knock off a top team. It's also an opportunity for a huge road win for Houston to add to their quad ones where they've been lacking. I think that game is very, very important. Wednesday at 9:00, Alabama at Mississippi State. Caleb, share the stat you shared with me about Alabama's schedule going forward.
Alabama's next 7 games are all against ranked opponents, in their 2 easiest games that I would say are there's only 2 that are outside the top 10 in rankings.
And Auburn twice, right?
Auburn twice. So they got to play at Auburn, which that'll be a fun one.
So we asked Caleb how many games they could lose, and Caleb said they can go 3 and 4 and still be a 1 seed. So watch Alabama if you can. In our final game, North Carolina versus Duke, great rivalry at Cameron Indoor Stadium. North Carolina needs a win bad, and this would be a really good win to get them back on the right side of the bubble. That is Saturday at 6:30. A whole bunch of other games that will impact the bracket. And you can find our recent bracket. We'll put out a new one this evening at DelphiBracketology.com. We put those out every Tuesday and Thursday, but that'll wrap it up for this final episode. Or not the final episode, our second episode of the year of the Bracket Report. We'd like to thank Greg Rakestraw and ISC Sports Network for giving us this opportunity and hosting our show. Keep in contact with us if you have questions. Twitter at Delphi Brackets. We also have a live stream discussion on Thursday nights on our YouTube channel if you're interested in that. But for Caleb Hosier and Walter Gleason, I'm Brian Tonsoni. Thank you for watching.